What is up, Google Cloud friends and family? I am joined here this afternoon by one of my favorite people I work with at Google Cloud, Inés, a senior director in product management for some of the cool things that we just launched yesterday with Gemini Enterprise Agent Platform. Inés, it is great to have you on. And
Thank
we've
you.
done demos together for three next, four next.
Yes, I think it's three, but we're gonna do the next one, so we'll do four.
Okay, perfect. Can't wait. Inez, you and I were talking before this, about Agent Platform.
Mm.
How many years, if you think of all the work that's gone into this, is it a lot of work, or did we build the foundation before we actually had to do much work?
Yeah, so at Google, we taking the approach of building horizontally a lot of the
Yeah.
capabilities in the platform. So we have big investments that are recurring, like are ongoing all the time, and that includes in the networking to really distribute all the paths to be standardized, to have like standardized hooks where you have controls, then you have API management at scale.
Yeah.
So we've been building a lot of the capabilities over the years. So then I think when it comes to the agentic evolution, it's more about the extensibility
Yeah.
of those. And I think that's what's really given us a great place to start.
One of the things I think is so interesting, so one of the announcements we had was actually for Agent Gateway.
Mm.
And I remember when you were first telling me about Agent Gateway, you're like, well, it's like a gateway, but it's also not a gateway. How should someone think about how we approach agentic identity and then that the access model
Mm.
on agents?
Mm. Yeah, looks like an agent, walks like an agent.
Not an agent.
Not an agent. No, let's talk about the gateway. So I think everybody knows network. I'm a networking person at heart, so like
I'm a finance major at heart.
I think those two can go together. We can do some good business here. Let's talk about that right after. But Google has extremely powerful network, and I think probably the biggest network in the planet. And we've been over the years been building something that we call one network. And what
Mhm.
one network is independent of the compute or storage or infrastructure stack that you're connecting, whether is a serverless or an infrastructure or is a Kubernetes pass. They're all communications get standardized with the same interfaces. And then what that does is that we are in a good place to really distribute the orchestration of controls
Mhm.
for things like policies and so on. So when it comes to the gateway, it's really more like a management construct that then really orchestrates the agentic protocols that are
Yeah.
running in the network. But like we don't really need to spin up a different stack to do that. We're just having the orchestration across all those control points. We build extensibility now for
Yeah.
MCP, for agent to agent, but the hard work is done. Like, so that's what I was meaning. Like, it's new um, management capability,
Yeah.
but all the plumbing is just reusing what we've built over the years.
Yeah, one of the things I love, for developers working with this stuff, right, is that gateways, right? Like I can create one, I have the logical gateway that I create, and then, agent traffic is actually pretty easy to manage, right? Because we already had the underpinnings with identity aware proxy. I can, set conditional things with, my agent behavior, with my MCP behavior. Like it is like nice, and you just manage it like policy.
Right.
Like,
So if you think about the evolution of the stack, then it's really, I mean, the model context protocol, the agent to agent, then it's, I mean, in some ways behaves the same. It,
yeah,
it can run HTTP or it can run, gRPC, but then I think how you control the application layer, it's very different. It's
yeah,
natural language. That's my goal. Like, it's stuff talking, it's unstructured.
yeah.
So I think that's where some of the fun parts come with AI protection and whatnot. Like you're really protecting language, like human language, and you need to understand if you have a number, is that a credit card number that you're trying to exfiltrate, or is that
It was my credit card number.
it was
To
your
be
credit
clear,
card number? So
no one cares.
then we're good. But or is that like a meaningless
Yeah.
identifier for something that isn't stack? So it's very it's a very interesting topic of how do we protect in that new world those
Yeah.
communications.
So another thing you mentioned with that, which I think is also, I know we've been building up on these for the past few months, but tell me a little bit more about Google Cloud MCP, because obviously there's ways that we're approaching MCP that customers can also leverage as well. So what makes Google Cloud MCP, how we're using that with Google APIs,
Yeah.
unique for folks who are like, I've heard of MCP, but I've also heard that MCP can be not authorized or unsecure. Like, how do they use these things in a way where they feel confident that they're going to have like a production ready thing?
Right. So let's imagine, you work in my company and you are very adventurous, developer.
I set owner to all my projects, so I am. Yeah.
So you're gonna go and set up stuff in your laptop, and I love you, Jason, but I'm not gonna trust you. Like I don't know
I
what.
wouldn't trust me.
No, I don't know what you're running there for. What But it's really hard to really build any of the controls on the local environments. It's just so. What we've done in cloud is really we're using all the API management infrastructure, and under the hoods, you have API management, and then you have really a networking capabilities. In the world, like most of the things go down to the network.
That's
Anyway,
all the network,
that
isn't
is, you have API management is like a layer 8 in the networking stack. Did you study the OSI stack? Like you have L7 is application.
I'm like layer 9, which is the user. Is the user layer 9? Is the user layer 10? I'm not a networking engineer.
Anyway, so what it does is like at that layer, then you have the application, which has the meaning of what someone is trying to do. So we've used that API management capability to now do NCP remote management capability. But you can imagine the sophistication. We're running, it's not even Google Cloud API management, it's Google API management. You use any APIs of Google. Cool. That's the platform that we're running on. And this one NCP, by the way, the NCP servers that we do remote, it has Google Cloud capabilities, but we're exposing a lot of capabilities for Android, for maps, and so on. So the beauty of that is that the same controls we've built over the years for the management, the authentication, authorization, you have quota management for, that then converts into requests, API requests, or MCP request management. They're all kind of integrated into the platform. You don't need to stand up a container or a serverless to run your own remote NCP server and then have all the controls there. So you just, go, use it, good to go.
One of the things I actually love about it is people think that writing tools is this like easy thing that you do, right? You look, I look at this API, like I just, give an AI the thing, it writes a spec for it, like I'm good to go. You're like, not really. Like how do I use a database? How do I use something like Cloud Run? Like even like the atomic units, like, hey, how am I mutating a service? Like there are nuances in the platform and like when a tool should be called that. What's great is that Google experts who are Google software engineers are actually writing like these specs also that customers get to benefit from, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah, so there's two parts on this. The model context protocol is the server, which is kind of all the infrastructure. We talk that under the hood it has network. I'm not going to let go. So,
it's all network. That's my takeaway from this. It's all about the network.
the network, but it's like it's a server, client server. Okay, and then on top of that, then you publish tools. But then, to your point, you need to understand how to build those tools. Those tools is like go query my data or go right to this data set or whatnot. So it's tricky sometimes to build those in the best way that work with the agents, and this is where Google Cloud and a lot of the work so that the tools are at the right level of granularity and with the right kind of instructions. You also need to write instructions. The tool does this, so then you announce it to the world.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of art that goes into that. You need to test it. You need to try different things. All that comes off the shelf by using our MCP servers.
That's super cool. So let's move up the stack on kind of the agent work.
Even more, okay.
Yeah,
Getting farther
we're going
from
to like
the network
layer 11.
Uh-huh.
There's no layer 13 though. That's bad luck.
We can create it here.
Or it's my layer. I don't know. So Mofi this morning, as part of the developer keynote, talked about how we think about building agents. So we obviously have, from the agent code perspective, we have MCP, connecting to remote MCP servers, which is awesome because as a developer, I just give it, a registry link, and then it can import all these things for it. How would I think then about skills?
Yeah, I think skills are going to become super important, and for the most part, are how-to guides.
Yeah.
It's like you're telling your agent in plain English or Spanish maybe at some point. This is, these are the things you should do, and to do those, do first X, second Y, third. And then for this, go and call that tool. If you, for that step, go and, whatever. But this is a markdown file. And so I think one of the biggest challenges in the new architectures is how do you make sure that all those are not tampered with?
Yeah.
Because anyone can go and, mess with your file. Just give different instructions.
I only build locally, so I wouldn't.
You build locally. You give fun instructions to this agent. And, agents are very accomplished. They really like to achieve their goals. So if you give them a goal, they're gonna do anything it takes to go and make it happen. And they're gonna find all type of loopholes to go and achieve your task because they're very proud. And I think they're gifted teenagers. That's the way I think about them. It's they're too smart for their own good. So what happens is you really need to treat these, as artifacts, doing vulnerability scanning, having versioning, understanding if anyone has changed, what has changed, versioning, management, and all that. So this is a lot of the work that we're going to do moving forward, is really do the catalog of the skills that they can be used, but also treat them as real software artifacts. You had binaries before, now you have skills.
Yeah.
As dangerous or more.
What I love about it, if you think of, and we'll talk about agent registry here in a second, we have the foundations, right? So we have the network, where we've been working on MCP servers, remote enablement security around that, moving so it's easy for developers to use skills, whether it's probably ours or custom created ones, because those do exist, right? There's specialized knowledge that only I have that I maybe want to share out, give with an agent in a controlled way. Let's talk then the last piece. So how do we sharing agents? You and I did a demo. We did zero coding of any agents because apparently that's what you and I do.
Mm-hmm. I love no code agents.
No code agents. How does agent registry? So business users, right? They have many use cases where building a no-code agent actually, as you and I were even doing, right, you can get relatively close with just a few prompts. How does agent registry make it easy for developers and business users to actually collaborate together with agents?
Yeah. I more and more, I really think that all this agent ecosystem is going to become more specialized agents, or even really like very light and that do few things well, and
Yeah.
then they kind of talk with each other to accomplish more complex tasks. So on the agent registry, you have two things. You first make sure that they're discoverable.
Yep.
You have as well metadata about what they can do, what they're good for, and you also have controls associated to that. So then I can actually set up, like, I might give you access
Mhm.
to my less dangerous agent, and then the ones that are dangerous I'm going to keep away from you. I'm just going to set policies around. So it serves that double purpose. But I think it's the bread and butter of any governance,
Yeah.
to know what's going on.
Yeah. What I love, times there's users where it's like, hey, I have this idea. Like, hey, like you can have your idea, you can build a no code or even a high code agent and just use it on your own. But with registry, you can bring that together also, and you can say, hey, like, well, your agent, my agent. Well, what if we like made a team of agents
Right.
that like started to help accomplish tasks together? And what's cool about that, at least from my perspective, in like using some of the front end work in Gemini Enterprise in particular, is like, well, let's try it. Like I can give two agents this context, and like let's see where this goes, and obviously in a way that's security and privacy safe, but it I think it unlocks a lot more experimentation,
Right.
because so many agentic things, as you and I both know, like you kind of have to just try it out,
Right.
and until you do that, you're like, well, like it's an interesting idea, like will it work or will it not?
Yeah.
But before that was like a 6-month activity.
I know. It's like make it so much easier. And because I do no code agents, but you're a real developer, so you're going to do the high code agents.
I think it's like flipped.
Then I'm gonna just explore like what my code no code agent can do with your agents. But just open so many possibilities as to the what we can achieve in terms of the end-to-end task. So yeah, very easy to collaborate, and then they start sharing the context, and it's fascinating because I really believe that at some point, we will have like these teams of agents and humans that will become a team. Sometimes it's actually to share the context as part of, you have like a space in which all of them are collaborating, share the same context. That really need sharing everything I need to do with you. So it's like a much more efficient way to have agents, like helping us to bridge towards the gaps of human communication as well. It's really going to open up a lot of different possibilities for collaboration.
I think that's super cool. All right, let's talk about, I'm going to totally change topics on you. You have obviously, within your team, a very broad product portfolio. What's one thing that you or your team is working on that you think is super cool, but maybe some of our viewers are maybe less familiar with? And it can't be the network. No, it can't be the network.
Yeah, I left the network some few years ago, but I keep a close eye. My team, because we are doing a lot of the plumbing, is a lot of the things we do there not very well known, but for example, all these capabilities that have been leveraged for the agent platform is something again that we've been working over the years. I think right now, I don't know if it's not well known, but some of the areas around the cloud as is really transforming the management of cloud, which we do not only work on the platform that builds the agents, but we also create agents that are very specialized in cloud management. So if you want to create Terraform or you want to um, investigate or troubleshoot an issue that is ongoing in cloud, or you want to understand the cost, or you want to um, understand, which vulnerabilities might be in your workloads, you have like a set of agents that help you. You just speak
Yeah.
English and help you to do all that. So that is super cool. And more, they'll start being more autonomous. So the question is, like, where are the things that as humans we're going to be more comfortable giving these agents
Yeah.
autonomy to do? We've just launched the proactive agents, which what they do is like before you ask them what's wrong, they're gonna take a look at what's
Yeah.
wrong and then they're gonna find some diagnosis and remediation for that. But you can imagine, like, you can apply that to everything, cost anomalies, and then if a roller
Yeah.
goes wrong, and then they're going to keep an eye on you, and then once they know what's going on, they're gonna want to fix it as well. So, how much autonomy we give them, or
That's super cool. All right. Inez, thank you so much for joining me on this in addition to the live stream, or sorry, the big stage earlier.
mm,
We did great.
yay, go
Thank you,
Jason!
everyone, for
Thank you.
listening in, and hope this was super informative, and we'll catch you here in a little bit.